Hi friends, I welcome you all here at TNV Academy. In this session, we are about to discuss the clause 6.2 Business Continuity Objectives and Planning to Achieve Them of an international standard ISO IEC 22301 2019, that is Security and Resilience Business Continuity Management Systems. Clause 6.2 of ISO 22301 2019 has two subclauses: 6.2.1 Establishing Business Continuity Objectives and 6.2.2 Determining Business Continuity Objectives. So, in this session, we shall cover all the requirements of Clause 6.2 Business Continuity Objectives and Planning to achieve them in detail, covering both the subclauses 6.2.1 and 6.2.2 along with some examples for your ease. As the requirements of clause 6.2 depends upon the requirement of clause 1, clause 4.1 and clause 4.2 of the standard, so I would like to recommend you referring these clauses for better understanding of clause 6.2. Now, let's discuss about the outcome of this session. After completing this session, you will be enabled to understand and verify the implementation of the requirement of clause 6.2 of the ISO 22301 2019. You will also learn about establishing business continuity objectives at relevant functions and level. You will also learn how to determine business continuity objectives through planning. Now, coming to the mandatory documentation requirements under this clause 6.2. According to subclause 6.2.1, standard specifies that the organization shall retain documented information on the business continuity objectives. Let's discuss the clause 6.2 of ISO 22301 2019, Business Continuity Objectives and Planning to Achieve Them. As I had mentioned earlier, that clause 6.2 has further two subclauses, 6.2.1 and 6.2.2. We shall discuss both these subclauses in this session one by one. So, let me start with the subclause 6.2.1, Establishing Business Continuity Objectives. The organization shall establish business continuity objectives at relevant functions and levels. The business continuity objectives, point 1, shall be consistent with the business continuity policy. Point 2, shall be measurable, if practicable. Point 3, shall take into account applicable requirements. See clause 4.1 and clause 4.2. Point 4, shall be monitored. Point 5, shall be communicated. Point 6, shall be updated as appropriate. The organization shall retain documented information on the business continuity objectives. Coming to the explanation part of this subclause 6.2.1. The subclause 6.2.1 specifies that the organization must establish business continuity objectives at relevant functions and levels. The business continuity objectives must be consistent with the business continuity management policy. According to the subclause 6.2.1, business continuity objectives must be measurable, if practicable. Clause says that business continuity objectives must be based on applicable requirements. This is also specified under subclause 6.2.1, that to refer the clause 4.1 and clause 4.2 of the standard for more information on applicable requirements. The subclause 6.2.1 says that the business continuity objectives must be monitored and communicated, and objectives must also be updated as appropriate. Clause 6.2.1 states that the organization should maintain documented information on the business continuity management objectives. Now, coming to the subclause 6.2.2, Determining Business Continuity Objectives. The requirement of subclause 6.2.2, Determining Business Continuity Objectives of the standard are: When planning how to achieve its business continuity objectives, the organization shall determine what will be done, what resources will be required, who will be responsible, when it will be completed, and how the results will be evaluated. Let me explain the clause 6.2 covering the subclause 6.2.2 now. The purpose of business continuity objectives is to determine conformity to customer, regulatory and relevant stakeholders, requirements, and effective deployment and improvement of the BCMS. The clause 6.2.2 sets out the specific requirements for the planning of business continuity objectives. This clause requires organization to monitor and measure and evaluate results to planned objectives. Top management must provide the leadership, organization, and resources to deploy and achieve planned business continuity objectives. The process and the responsible personnel need to achieve the business continuity objective must be determined. The business continuity policy provides the framework for determining business continuity objectives in order to be consistent with it and provide examples of such consistency. In this clause, the organization must ensure that specific business continuity objectives are established at relevant functions and levels needed for BCMS. The business continuity objective should be relevant to meeting the requirements of your products and services and enhancing customer satisfaction. Business continuity objectives are used to measure the performance of products, processes, customer satisfaction, suppliers, use of resources, and the overall performance and effectiveness of the BCMS. Business continuity objectives may be established for all BCMS processes. Business continuity objectives may be set at various functional levels of the organization: top management, sections, processes, functional groups, project teams, individuals, etc. It would be useful to cover these levels as they contribute to the customer or organizational objectives and add values. Workforces at all of these levels must be made attentive of the importance of objectives and how they must contribute to the accomplishment of them. Business continuity objectives must be measurable. These business continuity objectives must be deployed and measured, and top management must conduct an effective review of the measurement results. These measurement results must also be used for corrective action and continual improvement. The business continuity objectives must be achieved within a defined time period to ensure accountability. This could be determined by customer, management, regulatory bodies, etc. Business continuity planning process must establish including the communication of objectives and timelines to those responsible for achieving them. Business continuity objectives may be documented in any or all of these documents such as Business Continuity Manual, BCMS processes, procedures, continuity plans. The establishment of business continuity objectives should be part of the business planning or BCMS planning processes. A review of the continuity objectives should be part of management review process. After the review, the business continuity objectives may be updated as appropriate. As documented information, documented statement of objectives must be controlled by clause 7.5.3 Control of documented information. Organization must be careful not to overwhelm organization with too many objectives, as this may cause more hindrance than positive results. Start with objectives that focus on meeting customer requirements and then slowly develop meaningful objectives for key processes and risk-prone processes as initial targets are achieved. According to clause 6.1, organizations need to clearly understand how these will be realized. For example, if your goal is to offer international coverage, how will this be accomplished? What resources will you assign employing manpower globally? Who will manage it? Have you understood when it needs to be achieved and what will you do to check it is operative? Now, coming to an important aspect of the standard, that is, practice writing non-conformity under this clause. Please see the auditor finding action report on screen for writing non-conformities under this clause. I leave it up to you now. Please go through this and try to understand the various components of this non-conformance report. Friends, it was about clause 6.2. I hope that you have a detailed idea about clause 6.2 of ISO 22301 2019. And now we have reached at the end of this session. I sincerely thank you all for your interest and attention.